Hey guys, this is a very important video. It's about the new 2030 agenda and also about the TTIP. If you didn't know, these are two very important steps for the globalists to install a one world government, a one world currency, and etc. And they're really pushing forward with this. I'm going to show you a couple of videos. The first video is from WikiLeaks and it is covering the transatlantic trade agreement or partnership and those sorts of things. And then the second video is from a guy called KJ at the Scariest Movie Ever YouTube channel, and you guys really need to see this to believe it. It's crazy how fast we're moving towards a one world government.
WikiLeaks is raising a €100,000 reward for Europe's most wanted secret, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership.
This is something enormous. It is about a final control, and it's the United States saying there may be another power in the world, but we will be the ultimate power.
The TTIP is the most important thing that is happening in Europe right now. It's a secretive deal being negotiated between Europe and the United States.
Once signed, it will cement a key part of the US government's plan to create a new global bloc that will ensure the dominance of its largest companies. And to understand why, we need to go back to the 1950s.
See the USA in your Chevrolet. America is asking you to call. Drive your Chevrolet through the USA.
After the Second World War, the United States accounted for half of the world's economy. Its influence was unmatched by any country, and it was able to write the early rules of international trade to its advantage. The World Trade Organization was created in this context, and the US dictated rules that favored American business. But as economies like China and India joined the WTO, it became a more democratized arena, and the US found it harder to control its decision-making.
At the WTO, at its Doha rounds, India spoke up and Brazil spoke up, and the US lost control.
I think it's no use beating around the bush. This meeting has collapsed.
The US felt it needed a new strategy to maintain its global dominance. So in the classical American style, they went big. To bypass the WTO, they're creating the biggest international agreements that the world has ever seen. They're called the three big T's: the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, or TTIP, and the Trade in Services Agreement, or TISA. And they're all being negotiated in secret right now.
We only found out when WikiLeaks was able to leak parts of them.
And what's interesting is when you look across all of these deals, whether it be TTIP, TPP or TISA, China is excluded, but also Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, they're all excluded because those are the emerging economies.
What is not often understood is that these agreements are part of a geopolitical war. This is a new war which is taking place between the United States and China. The United States is very scared of the rise of China, so it has moved to militarily encircle it through what is called the pivot to Asia, and now it's moving on to doing that economically.
The basic idea which comes across from reading US strategy papers is the construction of a new grand enclosure. And to put inside this grand enclosure, the United States, 51 other countries, 1.6 billion people, and 2/3 of global GDP. To integrate Latin America away from Brazil and towards the United States, to integrate Southeast Asia away from China and towards the United States, and to integrate Western Europe, pulling it away from Eurasia as a whole and towards the Atlantic.
Of the three big T's, WikiLeaks has revealed 4 chapters of the TPP, which affects 12 countries in the Americas and Southeast Asia. We also obtained and released the core text of TISA, which affects 52 countries, including the EU. But nearly all of TTIP is still secret. When signed, TTIP will cover half of global GDP and will affect every European member state. Yet EU parliamentarians have serious restrictions in accessing the proposed agreement.
Yeah, I find it incredible as well that for something which is a trade agreement, not a matter of life and death in terms of security, where maybe you can understand some restrictions, and we don't even like those very much, but for a trade agreement, you know, that we can't actually make notes about what it is we're reading, issues that we might want to take away to look into, which actually might reassure us, you know, if we really were able to sort of take this away and look at it in depth.
We don't have access to the key documents, the most important ones, because the devil is in the detail. When it comes to trade agreements, you need to know exactly what's in the text so that you can assess what the impact's going to be.
If EU parliamentarians want to see the TTIP, they have to call the US embassy and make an appointment. The appointments are only available 2 days a week for 2-hour time slots. Only 2 parliamentarians are permitted at once. They go to the US embassy, they have to hand in every electronic device, so they cannot possibly make a copy. They must agree to keep everything confidential, and then they're led to a secure reading room where 2 US embassy guards watch everything that they do. How can EU parliamentarians possibly understand what they're negotiating for Europe under these circumstances?
The world's biggest corporations don't have the same problem. They have been receiving VIP access from day one and have had abundant influence in the negotiations.
People, the likes of you and I, are excluded. Governments, to a great extent, are excluded. Those who are included are the multinational corporations.
These agreements are basically corporate ownership agreements. The funny thing about free trade agreements, as we understand them, is they often have nothing to do with trade in the sense of the mutual lowering of tariffs. What they're about is enshrining an investor rights regime in the respective countries and ensuring that corporations can run wild in the respective economies with very, very little regulation or impingement by government or authorities.
These treaties will have huge, huge implications for literally almost every critical issue that an individual citizen or community would care about: health, education, the environment, privacy, access to medicines. I mean, the list could go on.
One of the most criticised aspects of TTIP is a system called the Investor State Dispute Settlement, or ISDS. It's a secretive international tribunal that allows companies to sue states over virtually anything that they can claim affects their investment.
If a protest affects their profits, they can sue. If laws affect their profits, they can sue. If new regulations might impact where or what they want to do with their money, they can sue.
This is a new power which will be handed over to US corporations to sue the governments of Europe in a parallel judicial system which is available to them alone. So people have no access to it, domestic firms have no access to it, governments have no access to it. It's just there for foreign investors, in this case, US corporations.
Based on ISDS history, critics argue that European state sovereignty and democracy are at serious risk. Previous lawsuits include Swedish company Vattenfall suing the German state for $3.7 billion for phasing out nuclear energy. British American Tobacco sued Australia for passing a law limiting cigarette advertising. The French company Veolia sued Egypt for raising the minimum wage. TTIP advocates say that in order for the EU and US to become a single market, regulatory barriers need to be eliminated. This way, for example, a US seatbelt manufacturer already selling seatbelts domestically wouldn't need to test for safety a second time, as the EU would agree to recognise the US safety standards. They argue that this would save costs, create jobs, and lower prices for consumers. But just how safe are US standards?
So in the USA, 70% of all processed food sold in supermarkets contains genetically modified ingredients, whereas in the European Union, we've said quite clearly we don't want GM ingredients in our food chain. Similarly, in the US, 90% of all beef is produced using growth hormones, which have been found to be carcinogenic in humans. So they're banned in the European Union. And what the US government is saying is that under TTIP, under the free trade rules that they want to bring in, European consumers don't get the right to choose.
TTIP includes all the most important public sectors in Europe, including education, water, railways, postal services, and most controversially, it also includes public health services.
What is so scary about this is that corporations want to lock in their power. So they not only want increased power, but they want to make it impossible for sovereign governments to reverse the changes which are going to give them power. So for example, with TTIP, if it passes with ISDS in it, the privatisation of the National Health Service, which is happening in the UK, can never be reversed.
What is democratic about an enormous imposition of power on countries whose citizens have no way of knowing what's going on, of debating it, or influencing their government in its decision? That's anti-democratic.
The history of these agreements shows that they're very difficult to change unless people can see what's in them. And that's why they're kept secret. Because when the contents are revealed, it generates an opposition.
WikiLeaks has had considerable success delaying the TPP and opening up the debate around it and the teaser by releasing the secret draft texts. Our publication of an earlier proposed US-EU agreement, the ACTA, killed it entirely. WikiLeaks is raising a €100,000 reward for Europe's most wanted secret, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. Help the world become a more transparent place. Do your part. Go to wikileaks.org/TTIP-reward.
Hey guys, it's KJ from the Scariest Movie Ever channel on YouTube, and I wanted to make a video about September 2015. There's a lot of eyes on September 2015. There's a lot of really interesting things that are lining up for that particular time of this year. I've covered some of this in some other videos, and I've seen plenty of other people out there covering this subject as well. As you can see right here, before 9/11 happened, there were a lot of signals, there were a lot of hints, there were a lot of signs. Now, it wasn't until after 9/11 happened that people really started piecing this stuff together and realizing just how we'd been programmed for many years to kind of accept this or to be ready for it. Truly, this is one of the most fascinating examples of lesser magic, or Illuminati lesser magic, predictive programming, social engineering. And of course, right now, a lot of people keep seeing the dates 9/23, 9/24, but there's obviously a lot of things that people are seeing. There's a lot of signs in the media. It's very similar to what happened before 9/11 if we would have known to be looking for things like this, right? So once again, people are seeing this 9/23 date, 9/24 date showing up in a lot of things, specifically a lot of Illuminati entertainment, music videos, movies, television shows, etc. So this is why there's such a cause for concern. Now, at the same time, I see a lot of people losing it towards this stuff as well, like really just saying, hey, 9/23, 9/24, September, this is it, it's done, meteors coming, massive destruction. Some people are calling for the rapture, saying it's the rapture. And that's not to say that we can't get an idea that something may be coming or something may be happening sometime by following the signs and symbols, because symbols certainly are language. But to really push out the fear on this, yeah, this is it, guys, rapture time coming, Jesus is here, and your tidal wave's coming, it's over, move out of New York, whatever it is, man. I mean, sometimes people just push it too far, in my opinion. And the same thing in the comment sections. You can see tons of people already rolling their eyes and saying, okay, yeah, when 9/23, 9/24 comes and nothing happens, then what? You've seen a lot of this kind of stuff. Okay, we've seen this before. I'm not sure if you guys know Rick Clay. Unfortunately, we lost Rick Clay back in 2008. It'd be really interesting to see what it'd be like right now if Rick Clay were still alive, because he was an amazing researcher. He's somebody I looked up to back when I first started off many years ago in all this stuff. Trying to understand the signs and symbols, understanding Illuminati symbology and things like this. Rick Clay was really, really good with this stuff. In fact, one of the things he was best known for was breaking down the symbolism of the 2012 London Olympics. I was still fairly fresh on YouTube back then, but I had been making videos, and I remember seeing a lot of this stuff coming out about 2012 London Olympics. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen this stuff as well, right? I mean, there was like tons of videos on YouTube saying, this is it, 2012 London Olympics, fake alien invasion, they're going to blow it up, you know, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, Project Bluebeam, major terror strike, the beginning of the New World Order, I mean, you know, FEMA camps, they're going to be locking you up. Once again, I remember seeing all that stuff come out just before the Olympics back in 2012. And a lot of people were making videos. And what happened? Nothing, right? Nothing substantial happened. When the Olympics came, the Olympics went. And the so-called truther community, or, you know, the conspiracy theorists, or people who study the Illuminati and symbolism, all those people took a really big hit. All the mockers and scoffers really came out after that. See, we told you, we told you. And so it is with this stuff, right? So it is. But that doesn't mean we should stop watching and looking for the signs. I mean, it's one of the things I do and have done for many years here. And the mass majority of the videos I've been seeing on September 2015, I think are really well thought out. Most of them, you could tell that people are critically thinking. They're using their common sense, their reason, their logic. Because there really are a lot of things lining up this summer. As I said, I've touched on this before. And there are some very real things that are coming down the pipe. Now, as far as meteor strikes go, or tsunami waves wiping out New York, or any of the coasts, anything like that, again, a lot of this stuff is speculation. And a lot of this stuff has been hinted at, as I said, in a lot of media just in the last few years. Once again, leading us back to 923, 924. So what I want to cover in this video is something that is going to happen for sure in September of 2015. This is something we know is going to happen. And I personally feel like a lot of people are missing this point. You know, once again, we're looking for this doom, this destruction. Some people are looking for the rapture, for Jesus to come back in September of 2015. But I feel like so many people are missing the most obvious thing right in front of our face. If you didn't know, the United Nations is announcing that Pope Francis will address the annual UN General Assembly of World Leaders on September 25th during his first visit to the United States. The Pope earlier agreed to address a joint meeting of Congress on his visit as well. That'd be a September 24th speech. It'll mark the first time the head of the Roman Catholics will address Congress in America. And he's also expected to have a White House meeting with President Barack Obama. What we're about to see here on a global scale is the true beginning of the New World Order. They're really bringing this out of the closet. They're talking openly about the New World Order, the one world system. And again, I mean, just, you know, a few years ago, back when I first started doing videos on YouTube, people were rolling their eyes constantly about this New World Order. Okay, one world religion, Antichrist, and all this stuff, right? But guys, just in the last few years since I've been on YouTube, it's just becoming so obvious. I mean, there's no denying it that this is what's on the way. And that's no longer just a conspiracy theory. They talk about this in the mainstream media. You can look up just about any prominent political figure over the last few years and type in their name and New World Order next to it, and you'll see where they've openly been discussing a New World Order, or a one world system. And so it goes with the Vatican as well. I mean, it's just some older news here, but as you can see, they've been talking about this stuff for a while. This is from October 2011, a global political authority and a central world bank. These are the solutions that the Pontifical Council for Justice and Peace recommends for the worldwide financial crisis. That's from the Vatican, of course, the world government connected with the central bank. And we know who run the central banks, right? This is the Illuminati. It's an Illuminati system. This is from November of 2011 from American Free Press. Vatican suggests one all-powerful bank run by one all-powerful global entity. You gotta love how they use the term entity, because that's certainly what's behind all this one world order stuff, is a very, very wicked entity. It's from Reuters, October 2011. Vatican calls for global authority on economy, wraps idolatry of the market. And once again, this is from Reuters, and this is from July of this year. Pope calls for new economic order, criticizes capitalism. And then once again, this is just from yesterday right here, but the Pope to call for New World Order at UN September meeting. Now, I'm going to show you more on that in just a moment, just so you understand. This isn't speculation, but I just want you to see this so you understand that there is something very real that is going to be taking place in September 2015. And this is something we don't have to speculate on. The dialogue of this New World Order, this one world religion ultimately, and that's tied into this as well. It's all coming out. This is mainstream stuff. And all of this is connected to a one world religious system as well. You know, throughout the years I've gotten a lot of messages from people saying, how do I wake people up? You know, how do I wake up my friends and my family and things like this? And, you know, trust me, I've dealt with the same thing. It ain't easy. It's never easy with this stuff. That's why I want to take a look at a few other things here real quick before we continue. I just want to show you, how fascinating it is to me how the elite have really put their plans right in front of our face for so long, but so few people see, right? And that's the problem. This is why it's so hard to wake up the so-called sheep or the sheeple, which all of us were that at one time as well, right? And then we woke up, we came through, but it's tough. It's really hard to pull people out of the matrix. This is many years of people being programmed, predictive programming, social engineering, all this stuff being right in front of people's faces, but so few people see. We've seen this time and time again. And if you know what to look for, it quickly becomes obvious that the elite of the world are not even trying to hide their insidious plans for the planet. They hope to unite the entire globe under their leadership, and they don't think that we are strong enough or smart enough to stop them. They openly embed symbols expressing their desire for a one-world economic system, a one-world religion, and even a one-world government on our buildings, on our monuments, and on our money, and they think that this is funny, that most people have no idea what those symbols mean. The New World Order openly mocks us, and they seem to take pleasure in giving us these little clues about what their plans for humanity are. In the global society that they have planned for us, individual freedoms and liberties will be greatly restricted for the good of humanity, of course. And they will use the emerging Big Brother police state control grid to monitor and control everything that we do. It would be a totalitarian regime unlike anything the world has ever seen before. And that's why it's absolutely imperative that we wake people up and get them educated about what the globalists plan to do so that we can start resisting this and we can stop this growing tyranny the best we can, right? And speaking of the 2012 London Olympics, I'll just show you an example right here, but this is from the official London 2012 website back when it was up, and this is a little character called Winlock. We're told that Winlock, the official mascot of the 2012 London Olympics, has a camera for an eye because that lets Winlock record everything. And this is again from the official website. I mean, how creepy is that, right? No matter what Winlock is doing, he's always watching you and he's always recording. And of course we see the obvious all-seeing eye symbolism there, right? But once again, right in front of your face. You try to tell people about this and what it really means, they're like, dude, you're talking about Winlock? Man, that's Winlock, man. Winlock's cool. He's a mascot. Whatever, right? Another prime example of them putting their plans right in front of our face is the Denver International Airport murals. And these have been covered multiple times. I've covered it myself, so there's really no need to get into it right here. But if you're not familiar with that subject, look it up. It's fascinating stuff, and there's a lot going on in these murals. Of course, we also can't forget to include the Georgia Guidestones. This is, many people believe, the 10 Commandments for the New World Order. Once again, right before our very eyes, right? This right here is a statue outside the UN headquarters in Belgium. So the coming world government has been portrayed as a woman riding a beast for ages. It's a very powerful symbol, and most educated people know what it really stands for. So it's interesting, isn't it, that we find it here at the EU headquarters in Brussels, Belgium, a giant statue of a woman riding a beast. The woman is supposed to represent the pagan goddess Europa, many people believe, and the beast is supposed to represent the pagan god Zeus. The pagan god Zeus is commonly associated with the entity known as Lucifer, or Satan. In the end, Europe, will be proudly riding high as a partner in the world system that has been established by Lucifer. We also find the same symbolism showing up in European money. This is a picture right here of a €2 coin minted for Greece that has the same symbology of a woman riding the beast. Now here's another great example of how the Illuminati put their plans right in front of our face. And this is Katy Perry, the woman riding the beast, and this is at the Super Bowl halftime show. And it doesn't just pertain to the Super Bowl. I mean, this is becoming very common. We're finding this in all kinds of awards shows now. Every year, seems like there's always some kind of weird symbolic ritual taking place on stage right in front of our face, right? But this also goes back to another interpretation of the woman riding the beast. We know, many of us know, that this is also biblical. And he carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast which was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and bedecked with golden jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and impurities of her fornication. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and of earth's abominations. Then, of course, on a much wider scale, this Illuminati symbolism is in practically everything from these corporations. And we know that essentially everything is run by just a handful of corporations. These are all branches of the same trees in many respects. And when you learn what to look for and you take notice, you'll find these Illuminati symbols in practically everything. And then moving beyond the corporate logos themselves, we start to find these corporate tools, or these Illuminati tools. Most of our high-level celebrities are constantly doing these Illuminati symbols. And all of these celebrities that so many people worship throughout their entire lives have completely and totally sold out to the satanic system. And this is why we're constantly seeing them paying their respects, showing the signs, showing the symbols. And it's never just one, it's never just two, it's throughout all of their work. We're constantly seeing this in music videos and movies and TV shows. So no wonder it's so hard to wake people up, right? Because we've been birthed into this system and bathed in this symbolism since we were babes. So once again, I know it's tough to show this to people and explain it to people when they've been bathed in this. They idolize these things. They idolize these people. So anyway, I wanted to cover a little bit of this right here and just show you that I understand how hard it is to explain this stuff to people. And I know how hard it is to break people out of these molds, you know? I mean, I get that. But let me give you some hope, because I've seen this in the last few years. There really is a massive awakening taking place. That people aren't that stupid. Not everybody is. You know, we can't just run around calling everyone a dumb sheep, because we were those dumb sheep at one time as well. But I'm seeing people are really waking up to the system. They're really getting it now. They're understanding it more and more. And that's a great thing. So anyway, now that we've covered some of this, I want to go ahead and show you a few things about the Pope. People believe that Pope Francis is the final pope. A lot of this goes back to the prophecy of Father Malachi Martin. You may be familiar with him, you may not be. If not, please check out some of his work. He's no longer with us, but he's certainly seen in many people's eyes as a Vatican whistleblower. I'll just read a little bit here, but Father Martin stated in his last book, Windswept House, and this is all about Satanism in the Vatican, okay, that a black magic ceremony had been performed in Rome and South Carolina simultaneously on June 29, 1963. The notes of interest on South Carolina, it became the home of Freemasonry in America, the state of origin for the Civil War, and also has a St. Peter's in Columbia. This ceremony was to enthrone Satan, and what is of interest here is that Father Martin stated that the enthronement was unable to occur sometime within 50 years of the ceremony, and that would mean that no later than June 29, 2013, Satan would be invited to assume the papal throne. This prophecy seems to come very near to correlation with the prophecy of St. Malachi. Malachi, a Catholic priest serving in the 11th century, reportedly made a long series of predictions concerning future popes. According to his prediction, only one pope will take office following the current Pope Benedict. This pope would be known as Peter the Roman and will serve during the reign of the Antichrist. Are these prophecies true? We don't have long to wait. And this article was written just a few years ago, so the time is now, and many people believe that the current pope is the final pope, quite possibly the false prophet. And this is just a little something I wanted to read that Malachi Martin wrote, but I think it's very interesting. And once again, you should definitely research him if you're interested in the satanic connection to the Vatican and what they're really doing there and looking into black masses and things like this. But he says, suddenly it became unarguable that now during this papacy, the Roman Catholic organization carried a permanent presence of clerics who worshipped Satan and liked it, of bishops and priests who sodomized boys and each other, of nuns who performed the black rites of Wicca and who lived in lesbian relationships. Every day, including Sundays and holy days, acts of heresy and blasphemy and outrage and indifference were committed and permitted at holy altars by men who had been called to be priests. Sacrilegious actions and rites were not only performed on Christ's altars, but had the connivance, or at least the tacit permission, of certain cardinals, archbishops, and bishops. In total number, they were a minority, anything from 1 to 10% of church personnel. And many occupied astoundingly high positions or rank. The facts that brought the Pope to a new level of suffering were mainly two: the systematic organizational links, the network, in other words, that had been established between certain clerical homosexual groups and Satanist covens, and the inordinate power and influence of that network. Now, how about this? And remember, this guy is considered some holy father, holy leader to millions of people all around the world. Pope Francis assures atheists, you don't have to believe in God to go to heaven. Now, I know that makes people feel good. I know a lot of people like to hear that. Oh, okay, well, in that case, and if that was the case, then why bother, right? Like, why bother believing? Why bother trying to apply these principles to our lives and trying to lead good, godly lives, right? Why bother? I mean, basically, he's saying it doesn't matter, right? There's also this weird stuff with male strippers and the popes. I mean, there's a story here, Pope blesses male strippers parrot. It's funny because this one actually reminded me of something I'd seen on Ratzinger before. This here's from a Christmas celebration at the Vatican from 2010. So as far as Illuminati tools go, or tools of Lucifer go, I mean, the popes over the last few years have certainly been right at the top of the list, in my opinion. Another really good example right here, Pope Francis says he would baptize aliens. Who are we to close the doors? Well, I've covered this quite a bit on my channel, the whole fake alien invasion, and I'm not just talking about a Project Bluebeam thing. I mean, it's a possibility. I'm talking about the fallen angels disguising themselves, coming down as alien friends or visitors. And I just think it's interesting that the Pope, of course, is getting that into the world's consciousness, bringing that kind of thing up. Hey, aliens come down, we'll baptize them, right? Just kind of putting it out there. And of course, just more evidence that the Pope is going to play a key role in this, final religion, this one world religion, where all religions are going to be combined. Pope Francis says all religions are true. According to Pope Francis, it doesn't matter whether you are a heterosexual, homosexual, pro-life or pro-choice, or conservative, liberal, or even a communist, because they all worship the same divine God and he loves them all. The surprising statement from the Pope came during discussions at the Third Vatican Council, which has been going on for the last 6 months. Council was convened so that the church hierarchy could decide what to do about some old Catholic Church doctrines, whether to throw them out completely or change the rules in some way. Now that same idea brings us back to Freemasonry. Freemasonry also puts forth the idea that all religions are one. We all praying to the same God, or the great architect, the big G. So you can see where the Vatican, the Masons, all the secret societies, all of these groups are working together. This is all a part of the beast system. All of them want the one world religion. The only thing that's going to be missing from this one world religion is Jesus Christ. Makes you wonder, right? That's why you shouldn't be surprised when you see stories like this. Joel Osteen meets with Pope Francis at the Vatican. Now, once again, this is all part of bringing all the religions into one. Then once again, still looking ahead at this potential alien invasion or alien contact, Pope Francis says we are not alone in the universe. In his homily, held this morning in St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis, with great ease and amazement among the faithful present, reveals, "Dear brothers, I wanted to tell all of you that we are not alone in the universe. Science has already made so much progress, and will most likely soon we'll know our new brothers and sisters with whom we will exchange a sign of peace." Now, I don't think it gets much more obvious than that. I mean, again, you can see where this tool of the beast system is putting this stuff out there, right? It's getting it into people's minds. It's getting you ready. And this right here was just from June of this year, 2015. And this one I took a little personal. Many people ask me about my faith, or am I religious, or whatever. And I always say it's no religion, just relationship. It's all about having a relationship with God the Father, the Supreme Being, the Almighty, and His Son, Jesus Christ. It's all about the relationship. You can have one-on-one. But of course, Pope Francis went as far as saying that having a personal relationship with Christ apart from the Catholic Church is, quote, dangerous. But as you can see, they're not going to like this in the New World Religion. They're not going to want you to have that personal relationship with God and Jesus Christ. You're going to have to be a part of this one world religion. All of that brings us to more recent news, and this all has to do with the Pope coming to America in September and the kind of things he's going to be talking about. He's really been putting down capitalism here lately. For the New World Order to actually be a one world order and a one world system, it's going to have to destroy capitalism. So that's all a big part of this. This is why you keep seeing this coming up in a lot of the dialogue over the last few months with Pope Francis. Even right here in the article, they're calling him Red Francis, but Pope Francis calls capitalism dung of the devil. That's why you'll see stories like this right here. Pope Francis receives a gift of Christ crucified on a hammer and sickle. And keep in mind now that communism is against God. Communism is an atheistic belief. There's no room for God or faith in communism. That brings me to this video here. This is from the YouTube channel Grindle61. It's right down there in the corner, so please check out Grindle if you're not familiar with his channel. It does a lot of really good videos, and this is one of them right here. Man erupts during Catholic climate change meeting, wants his church back. And this is a fairly recent video, I think. Let's see. Yeah, August 8th, 2015, so it's not too far away there. So yeah. Anyway, check this one out. I can't play it. I can't play the thing out or anything, but it's worthy of checking out. But I'll show you a few things here. This was a conference was taking place, a Catholic conference on climate change. You can see some of the agenda right there. But right there in the middle you can see climate change, right? The science behind climate change, scientific consensus on climate change, so obviously they're really pushing that. And then of course sustainable development, call to action. And all this once again goes back to Agenda 21. We've talked about Agenda 21 on my channel. You guys have probably seen a lot of things about that, other places as well. If you're not familiar with that term, please look it up. It's the agenda of the New World Order, how they're going to pull everything together into a one world system, and it covers everything. It basically covers all things of the world, the way the world works, everything, you know, commerce, travel, just kind of pulling everything in together. It's also about taking away more of your rights, and they find really interesting ways to do that. And of course, this whole climate change agenda is a really big part of that. Sustainable development, you know, they're going to have you living basically in a box by the time they're done with you, and taxing you on absolutely everything you do, even breathing air, leaving a carbon footprint, things like that. And once again, we're finally seeing the UN's religion, their agenda, coming out through these mainstream religions. We see the connection here now with Catholicism, and now they're putting it into your churches. So that was one thing. But another thing I thought was interesting. Now here's just another screenshot, and this is from the screen that's behind the lady that's on stage. And it's just got a few of her talking points. So I thought this was interesting right here. The best way to restore men and women to their rightful place is to put an end to their claim to absolute dominion over the earth. And that brings us to this. This is from endoftheamericandream.com. In September 2015, Agenda 21 will be transformed into the 2030 Agenda. If you didn't like Agenda 21, then you're really not going to like the 2030 Agenda. Next month, the United Nations is going to launch the 2030 Agenda at a major conference that will be held from September 25th to September 27th in New York City. The Pope is actually traveling to New York to deliver an address which will kick off this conference. Unlike Agenda 21, which primarily focused on the environment, the 2030 Agenda is truly a template for governing the entire planet. In addition to addressing climate change, it also sets ambitious goals for areas such as economics, health, energy, education, agriculture, gender equality, and a whole host of other issues. They want control in everything, you see it? As you will see below, this global initiative is being billed as a new universal agenda for humanity. If you're anything like me, alarm bells are going off in your head right about now. They're really coming right out and telling you what's going on. I'll read some of this. This new agenda is solidly rooted in a document known as Agenda 21 that was originally adopted by the United Nations back in '92. Since that time, Agenda 21 has been modified and amended numerous times. Noteworthy changes occurred in '97, 2002, and 2012. But now the UN's Sustainable Development Program is being given an entirely new name, and the scope of this agenda is being broadened dramatically. The following is what the official United Nations website has to say about it. The United Nations is now in the process of defining sustainable development goals as part of a new sustainable development agenda that must finish the job and leave no one behind. This agenda, to be launched at the Sustainable Development Summit in September 2015, is currently being discussed at the UN General Assembly, where member states and civil society are making contributions to the agenda. Just a few days ago, the core document for the 2030 Agenda was finalized. When what was in this document starts getting out, it is going to create a huge stir among Americans that are concerned about the ambitions of the globalists. The following comes from the preamble of this document. This agenda is a plan of action for people, planet, and prosperity. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace and larger freedom. We recognize that eradicating poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development. All countries and all stakeholders acting in collaborative partnership will implement this plan. All countries. We are resolved to free the human race from the tyranny of poverty and want to heal and secure our planet. We are determined to take the bold and transformative steps which are urgently needed to shift the world onto a sustainable and resilient path. This is starting to sound vaguely familiar, right? It's starting to remind me of the Georgia Guidestones a little bit. And we all continue. As we embark on this collective journey, we pledge that no one will be left behind. Okay. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals and 169 targets which we are announcing today demonstrate the scale and ambition of this new universal agenda. And they're all listed down there below. Okay, so I'll leave a link under this video here if you'd like to check this article out. And this is it. You know, this is what's coming in September of 2015 that you can count on. There's no speculation here. This is coming. This Agenda 21, sure they changed the name, it's all the same thing, but this One World Order agenda, including the religious aspects of it, the financial aspects of it, we're seeing all this stuff coming together, right? All this is coming together as one. But this is about to go global. This is big. In September they're announcing it. This is a new universal agenda. A new universal agenda. But this is something you can count on. This is something that's really going to happen. The question is, how much coverage will it get? Will people even talk about it? Once again, we know that Bohemian Grove is taking place out there, right? Those people in America have no clue about this, right? They don't even think about this stuff. So this may be another one of those things. And that'd be unfortunate because people need to know about this. Once again, it's becoming very obvious. They're going to continue with different events, all kinds of shootings, I'm sure. All this kind of stuff, all these distractions are still going to be happening. You're still going to get a lot of comic book movies coming out. It's going to be plenty of distractions there. A lot of sexy TV shows. I have no doubt about it. You know, I have no doubt about that. You know, they need to keep us fed with all these distractions. But not all of us are distracted. I know that some of you get it out there. So once again, this is it in September. This is something you can count on, guys. The New World Order is truly right at the door. We're really getting close to this. And they're coming out more and more and just telling us, hey, we're here. This is what we're doing. It's a universal agenda. So stay awake, stay aware, and let people know what's going on out there. And thanks for checking out the video.
So as you can see, this is a very real thing that we're dealing with right now. It's not just speculation anymore. The New World Order is coming, and it's coming soon. I'd like to take a minute to give thanks to WikiLeaks and KJ from The Scariest Movie Ever. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it and subscribe to my channel. God bless.